Part 1. The night Emma realized her feelings were changing, she wished she could turn back time. It started so quietly that she almost missed it. For years, she had spent weekends at her best friend Lily's house in a calm suburb outside Seattle, laughing over movies and homework while Lily's father, Daniel Harper, moved gently in the background of their lives. Daniel was known as the steady one, the calm single dad who made perfect pancakes on Sunday mornings and never forgot to ask how Emma's exams were going. He was in his early 40s, kind eyes, tired smile, the kind of man who carried both strength and sadness in the same breath. After Lily's mother passed away 5 years earlier, Daniel had poured himself into being a father, building a home that felt safe and warm even on the coldest Washington nights. Emma had always admired him, but admiration was safe. What she began to feel now was not. It happened on an ordinary evening. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen windows while Lily rushed upstairs to take a call, leaving Emma alone at the table with Daniel. The house felt too quiet. Daniel asked about college applications, his voice low and thoughtful. When Emma looked up, she caught him watching her with that same caring expression he had used since she was 16, but something in her chest tightened in a way it never had before. She quickly looked away, blaming the sudden heat in her cheeks on embarrassment. She told herself it was nothing. Just a moment. Just confusion. But moments started adding up. She noticed how safe she felt when he was near, how his calm presence made her restless heart settle. She noticed the small things, the way he rolled up his sleeves while washing dishes, the soft laugh he tried to hide when Lily teased him, the quiet loneliness that flickered across his face when he thought no one was looking. Emma hated herself for seeing those details. Lily was her best friend since middle school. Their bond was built on secrets, shared heartbreaks, and dreams of moving to New York together after graduation. Emma would never betray that. She would never cross a line. But feelings don't ask permission before they grow. Over the next few weeks, Emma tried to create distance. She skipped a few weekend visits, claiming extra study sessions. She stopped lingering in the kitchen when Daniel was there. Yet every time she stayed away, she felt an ache she couldn't explain. One Friday night, Lily insisted she come over for a small birthday dinner for Daniel. He doesn't celebrate much anymore, Lily had said. It would mean a lot. Emma almost said no. Instead, she showed up with a simple gift, a leather journal she had picked after remembering Daniel once said he used to write before life became too busy. When he opened it, surprise softened his face. "You remembered that?" he asked gently. Emma nodded, unable to hold his gaze for long. Something unspoken passed between them, fragile and dangerous. The dinner was simple, homemade pasta, quiet laughter, a chocolate cake that Lily nearly burned. But Emma felt different that night. She watched Daniel make a wish before blowing out the candles, and for a second she wondered what he wished for. The thought scared her. On the drive home later, the rain returned, heavy and blinding. Emma's mind replayed every smile, every glance, every word. She told herself this was just admiration for a good man, maybe even the longing for the kind of love she hoped to find one day. Daniel represented stability, kindness, maturity, everything boys her age seemed to lack. That had to be it. It had to be simple. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. A few days later, Lily excitedly announced that her dad had finally agreed to try dating again. "He deserves to be happy," Lily said, smiling. Emma forced a smile back, but her stomach dropped. The idea of another woman sitting at that kitchen table, laughing in that warm space, made her chest tighten with something sharp and unfamiliar. Jealousy. The realization hit her like cold air. This wasn't just admiration. It wasn't harmless. It was something she had no right to feel. That night, Emma lay awake staring at her ceiling, torn between guilt and longing. She loved Lily like a sister. She respected Daniel deeply. Crossing emotional lines would hurt everyone. She promised herself she would bury these feelings before they caused damage. She would protect their friendship. She would protect that family. But the heart rarely listens to promises made in fear. The next afternoon, Emma stopped by Lily's house to return a book she had borrowed. Lily wasn't home yet. Daniel opened the door, surprised but warm as always. "She'll be back soon," he said. "You can wait inside." The house felt different without Lily's laughter filling the rooms. They stood awkwardly in the living room, rain clouds gathering outside again as if the weather sensed the tension. Daniel thanked her once more for the journal. He admitted he had started writing again. "I forgot how much it helps," he said softly. Emma felt proud and guilty at the same time. When their eyes met, the air seemed to shift. Neither of them said anything wrong. Neither stepped too close. But something unspoken hovered between them, fragile and electric. And for the first time, Emma wondered if she was the only one fighting this silent battle, or if Daniel felt the change too. The sound of Lily's car pulling into the driveway broke the moment, but it didn't erase it. As Emma turned toward the door, heart racing, she realized this was only the beginning of something she could not yet name, something that would test loyalty, friendship, and the quiet boundaries of the heart. And she had no idea how far it would go. Part 2. Emma told herself that distance would fix everything, but distance only made the silence louder. After that afternoon in the living room, she became painfully aware of every small moment around Daniel. She started choosing seats farther away at dinner, keeping conversations short, focusing too hard on Lily's stories so she wouldn't notice the warmth in his voice when he spoke to her. Yet the more she tried to control her heart, the more it reacted on its own. A week later, Lily announced that her dad had his first date. She said it casually while scrolling on her phone, but Emma felt the words like a sudden drop on a roller coaster. Daniel tried to act relaxed about it, joking that he was rusty and didn't even know what people talked about on dates anymore. Emma forced herself to laugh along. She even helped Lily pick out a shirt for him, pretending she was excited. But that night, as she walked home under the cold Oregon sky, she couldn't ignore the tight feeling in her chest. She hated that she cared. She hated that she imagined another woman sitting across from him, hearing his quiet stories, seeing the softness in his eyes. She knew she had no claim over him. He was free to move on. He deserved happiness after years of grief. But emotions don't follow logic. The next evening, Lily insisted they stay over to spy from the upstairs window when Daniel left for his date. They giggled like teenagers, but Emma's smile felt thin. When Daniel stepped out in a navy blazer, looking nervous yet hopeful, Emma's breath caught. For a second, he glanced up toward the house, almost as if he sensed her watching. Their eyes didn't meet, but she felt exposed anyway. The car drove away, and Lily sighed happily. "I hope he likes her," she said. Emma didn't answer. Hours later, when Daniel returned, Emma pretended to be asleep on the couch. She heard the front door close softly, heard his footsteps pause near her. "You don't have to fake sleep," he said gently. Her eyes opened before she could stop herself. The house was dark, quiet. Lily had already gone to bed. "How was it?" Emma asked, keeping her voice steady. Daniel shrugged slightly. "She's nice," he replied. But it didn't feel right. Relief rushed through Emma so fast it scared her. She quickly masked it with a polite nod. "I'm sure you'll find the right person," she said, though part of her feared what that would mean. Daniel studied her for a moment, as if trying to read something behind her words. "You've been distant lately," he said quietly. The comment hit her unexpectedly. "Just busy with school," she answered too quickly. He didn't argue, but the look in his eyes told her he wasn't fully convinced. Over the next few days, the tension grew thicker. Emma noticed that Daniel seemed more thoughtful around her, more careful with his words. Sometimes their conversations stretched longer than they should have, about books, about college plans, about life after loss. He treated her like an adult, not just Lily's friend, and that made everything more complicated. One afternoon, while Lily was at soccer practice, Emma stopped by to drop off notes. She found Daniel in the backyard fixing the old wooden fence. Without thinking, she offered to help. They worked side by side in the fading sunlight, passing tools back and forth. The air felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. At one point, their hands brushed accidentally. It was brief, harmless, but it sent a spark through her that she couldn't ignore. She pulled back quickly, focusing on the sound of the hammer against wood. "Emma," Daniel said after a long silence, his tone serious but calm, "you know how much your friendship means to Lily." Her heart skipped. "Of course," she replied. "And you know how important boundaries are," he added carefully. The word boundaries hung between them like a warning sign. Emma felt heat rise to her face. So he had noticed. Maybe he had felt it too. She swallowed. "I would never hurt her," she said. "Honestly?" Daniel nodded, but his expression was complicated. "I know," he said softly. That was the first time either of them acknowledged that something had shifted. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't a confession. It was simply awareness. That night, Emma lay awake again, replaying his words. Boundaries. The truth was clear, whatever this feeling was, it couldn't grow. It shouldn't grow. But trying to erase it felt like trying to stop the ocean with bare hands. A few days later, Lily excitedly shared that her dad had been asked out again by someone else. This time, Daniel seemed more open to it. Emma saw the change, less hesitation, more willingness. It frightened her because it meant he was moving forward, and she was stuck in silence. During the second date night, Emma stayed home, determined not to torture herself. She tried studying, but her mind wandered. When her phone buzzed, it was Lily. "Dad looks happy." That simple message made Emma realize something painful. If she truly cared about him, she should want his happiness, even if it had nothing to do with her. The next time she visited, Daniel seemed lighter, more at ease. He mentioned the woman's name casually, and Emma listened without reacting. She had decided she would be strong. She would protect her friendship at all costs. But strength doesn't remove longing, it just hides it better. As she prepared to leave that evening, Daniel walked her to the door. The sky was turning pink with sunset, casting soft light across his face. "You'll always be important to this family," he said gently, almost as reassurance. Emma forced a smile, though her heart felt fragile. "I know," she answered. She stepped outside, the cool air brushing her skin, and realized she was standing at a crossroads. She could continue fighting these feelings alone, bury them until they disappeared, or risk everything by letting them surface. But as she walked down the driveway and heard Lily calling her name cheerfully from inside, Emma understood one thing clearly: if she didn't make a choice soon, the silence between her and Daniel would grow louder than any confession. And she wasn't sure how much longer she could pretend nothing had changed. Part 3. By the time autumn arrived, Emma understood that silence was no longer protecting anyone, it was slowly breaking her. Daniel's new relationship was becoming real. The woman's name was Claire, a marketing consultant from Portland with an easy laugh and confident smile. Lily liked her. That made everything harder. Emma watched from the sidelines as Claire started appearing at weekend dinners, sitting in the place Emma once took without thinking. Claire was kind, polite, even warm toward Emma, which made the guilt sharper. There was nothing wrong with her. No reason to dislike her. That was the problem. Emma had no excuse for the jealousy that tightened her chest each time she saw Daniel and Claire share a quiet look across the table. One Sunday afternoon, Lily invited Emma over for a small barbecue in the backyard. The air was crisp, leaves scattered across the grass, the sky clear and bright. Daniel stood near the grill, laughing at something Claire said, and for a brief moment Emma saw a version of him she hadn't seen in years, lighter, hopeful, almost free from the shadow of grief. That sight both warmed and wounded her. She wanted him happy. She truly did. But she had imagined, somewhere deep in her heart, that if he ever smiled like that again, she would be the reason. Throughout the afternoon, Emma forced herself to act normal. She helped Lily set up chairs, carried drinks, joined conversations. Yet her eyes kept drifting toward Daniel. At one point, Claire touched his arm gently while speaking, a simple gesture, but it felt loud to Emma. She excused herself and stepped inside, pretending she needed water. In the quiet kitchen, she leaned against the counter, breathing slowly. She hated feeling this way. It wasn't fair to anyone. She knew she had built a fantasy around moments that were never meant to mean more. Daniel had been kind, attentive, thoughtful, but that was who he was with everyone. She had mistaken warmth for something deeper. Or maybe she hadn't. The confusion exhausted her. A few minutes later, Daniel walked in to grab extra plates. He paused when he saw her standing there alone. "You okay?" he asked softly. Emma nodded too quickly. "Just needed air," she replied. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the space between them charged with things unsaid. Daniel looked tired in a different way now, not sad, but thoughtful. "Claire makes things easier," he said carefully, almost as if explaining himself. Emma swallowed. "That's good," she answered, and this time she meant it. He studied her face, as if searching for something. "You deserve someone who makes things easier too," he added gently. The words hit her harder than she expected. She realized then that whatever tension had existed between them, he was choosing clarity. Choosing boundaries. Not out of rejection, but responsibility. That understanding shifted something inside her. For the first time, she saw the situation clearly. Daniel was not confused. He was not waiting. He was moving forward with his life. And she was the only one holding on to what-ifs. That evening, after the barbecue ended, Emma walked home alone as the sun dipped low behind the trees. The sky burned orange and pink, beautiful and temporary. She replayed every memory from the past months, the rain in the living room, the brush of hands by the fence, the quiet talks about writing and life. Those moments had felt meaningful, and maybe they were. But meaningful does not always mean meant to be. She realized that part of her feelings had grown from loneliness too. She had watched her own parents struggle through divorce, seen love fall apart, and Daniel had represented stability, safety, and maturity. He was everything she feared she might never find. Falling for him had been easier than risking her heart with someone her own age. That truth hurt, but it also freed her. The next week at school, Emma noticed Ryan Mitchell, a quiet senior in her literature class who had always been kind but unnoticed. He asked about her college essay and listened carefully to her answer. There was no dramatic spark, no overwhelming intensity, just calm interest. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to consider the possibility that love didn't have to feel forbidden or complicated to be real. Meanwhile, Daniel's relationship with Claire continued to grow. Lily shared stories about double dates and weekend trips. Emma listened without flinching. Something inside her was settling. She decided to create real distance now, not out of fear, but acceptance. She limited visits to times when Lily truly needed her. She focused on applications, on her future, on friendships that belonged to her own world. One afternoon, Daniel called her unexpectedly. Her heart skipped before she answered, but his voice was steady. "I just wanted to thank you," he said. "For being patient with everything. For understanding." Emma smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me," she replied. "I care about you both." And she did. The difference was that the sharp ache was fading, replaced by something calmer, more mature. That night, Emma sat at her desk and wrote in her journal for the first time in months. She wrote about growth, about timing, about how sometimes feelings arrive not to be fulfilled, but to teach. She realized she wasn't losing something, she was learning what kind of love she wanted one day. Strong, steady, mutual. Not silent and one-sided. A week later, Claire officially became part of family dinners, no longer just a guest. Emma attended one more time, determined to prove to herself she could. When she saw Daniel laughing beside Claire, she felt a soft ache, but it no longer crushed her. Instead, she felt proud of him. Proud of herself too. As she hugged Lily goodbye that night, Lily whispered, "I'm glad nothing changed between us." Emma squeezed her hand. "Nothing important did," she said honestly. Walking away from the house under a sky full of early winter stars, Emma realized that love sometimes begins in confusion but ends in clarity. What she had felt wasn't wrong, it was human. But what she chose to do with it defined her. And for the first time in months, her heart felt lighter, ready to step into a future that belonged only to her. Part 4. Winter arrived quietly, covering the neighborhood in soft white snow, and with it came the kind of clarity Emma never thought she would find. The distance she had created was no longer forced, it felt natural now. She still visited Lily, still laughed in the Harper kitchen, but the heavy tension that once followed her like a shadow was gone. Daniel and Claire were steady together, not dramatic or loud, just comfortable. Emma noticed the difference in Daniel most of all. He seemed peaceful in a way she had only seen in old photographs from before his wife passed away. Watching him now didn't hurt the same way. It felt like closing a book she once held too tightly. College acceptance letters began arriving in thick envelopes, each one carrying possibility. Emma was accepted into a university in Boston, far from Oregon, far from familiar streets and complicated emotions. When she told Lily, they screamed and hugged, already planning future visits. When she told Daniel, his eyes shone with pride. "You're ready," he said, and there was no hidden meaning in his voice this time, only encouragement. That simple tone confirmed everything had shifted into its proper place. One evening in early December, the Harpers hosted a small holiday dinner. Claire helped decorate the tree while Lily played old Christmas songs too loudly. Emma stood by the window, watching snow fall under the streetlights. For a moment, she remembered the girl she had been months ago, confused, jealous, scared of her own heart. She barely recognized that version of herself. Growth had been painful, but it had shaped her. During dinner, Daniel raised a glass to thank everyone for helping him rediscover happiness. His eyes briefly met Emma's, not with tension, not with questions, but with gratitude. It was a silent acknowledgement of everything they had navigated without ever breaking trust. Later that night, as Emma prepared to leave, Claire surprised her with a small gift, a silver bracelet with a simple charm shaped like an open book. "For your new chapter," Claire said warmly. There was no rivalry in her smile, no suspicion. Just kindness. Emma felt something inside her settle completely. She realized that what she once thought was love had been a bridge, leading her from girlhood into emotional maturity. It had shown her what stability looked like, what patience felt like, and what real responsibility meant. Outside, Daniel walked her to her car one last time before winter break. The air was cold, their breath visible in soft clouds. "I'm proud of the woman you're becoming," he said quietly. The words held weight, but not romance. Respect. Care. Closure. Emma smiled, her heart calm. "Thank you for always being kind to me," she replied. They shared a brief, appropriate hug, one filled with warmth but free from confusion. In that moment, she understood something deeply important: love is not only about desire. Sometimes it is about choosing what protects others. Sometimes it is about stepping back. A week later, Emma met Ryan for coffee before he left for his own college. Their conversation was easy, light, honest. When he reached across the table to hold her hand, she didn't feel guilt or fear. She felt curiosity. Possibility. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was real, and most importantly, it was right. As the holidays passed and January approached, Emma packed her room into boxes. Each folded sweater, each photo tucked into a suitcase, felt like a quiet goodbye to the past year. On her last night in town, Lily insisted on a sleepover like old times. They stayed up late talking about the future, about careers, about who they might become. At some point, Lily looked at her seriously and said, "You've changed this year." Emma nodded. "I know." But the change didn't scare her anymore. On the morning she left for Boston, snowflakes drifted slowly from a gray sky. Danielle helped load her bags into her parents' car while Claire handed her a travel mug filled with hot chocolate. Lily hugged her so tightly it almost hurt. As the car pulled away, Emma looked back once at the Harper house. It no longer felt like a place of confusion. It felt like a chapter completed with dignity. The road ahead was long, stretching beyond what she could see, but her heart was steady. She understood now that forbidden feelings do not define a person, how they respond to them does. She had chosen loyalty over impulse, growth over fantasy, and respect over selfishness. In doing so, she had protected the people she loved and discovered her own strength. As the city skyline slowly came into view hours later, Emma felt something new rise inside her, not longing, not regret, but hope. Her story was just beginning, and this time, the love she would find would stand in the light, not in the shadows.